I just would like to welcome everyone to our Connecticut Family School Partnership Council meeting today. I probably had the opportunity to talk to most people at one point on our council. And so I just want to welcome you. I work at CREP. I am the program director for the Connecticut Family School Partnership Initiative here in Connecticut. And I think most people know quite a bit about it, but here we are, and we're going to be discussing more. One of the things I do know right now is that all of us are facing different challenges, managing different kinds of things. But what I do want you to know for today, for the next 90 minutes, we're together and you're with like-minded people who are family engagement advocates. That's why you're here. And so I'm hoping that you can take a deep breath just for a little bit here today. Our goal is really for our collective voice to have impact on family engagement work here in Connecticut. And I think that's a very possible and doable goal for us. So I want to thank you all for your time, your commitment, and all of your thoughts and support as we move forward. Okay, so the agenda for the day really is to talk about the council members, and I'd like to introduce our co-chairs, who Yukio Ildiko is here, Ildo, say your name wrong, is here, and also Donna Marina was not able to be here, but was a member of, a member of the planning committee. We're going to go a little bit, Yukio will talk a little bit about the vision and some of the roles of the council members, which really were developed by our parent advisors. And so it's perfect that she is one of those people kind of talking about that. We decided to highlight one of our partners that work on the SFBC work, and that would be our CPAC, which is Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center. So Jane Hampton is here to talk a little bit about her work and the role that she has with the things that we're doing, and also has a parent story for us. And lastly, probably most importantly, we're going to talk a little bit about our innovative working groups that we just launched and started to talk about last month. And then opportunities to talk to each other. I think that's probably the most important piece, and we'll make sure that happens. So I think we've shown this map before, but I think it's important to kind of look at again. You can see that the council members are representative of folks all over the state. As you know, that the parent membership is over 51%. That's mandated by our grant. But in fact, we are very fortunate to have some incredible parent leaders and incredible leaders, not only from the Parent Leadership Institute training, but and other kinds of programs that have been, so our parents have been on here, and also our stakeholders in terms of moving things forward. Let's see, we should have a Zooming meeting someplace here. Yes. Okay, so one of the things that the recording will be recording our session today, so everyone should know that. And that recording will be available not only to people here, but there are several other members who will be accessing that recording afterwards. So we're going to ask you to introduce yourself in the chat box. That's our way of acknowledging you. I want you to know that we have two folks who will be paying attention to the chat box. That's Octavia Moore, who is our parent advisor, and also Francisco Baez, who will be looking at the chat box to answer questions if you have them. Today we're going to have 3 breakout sessions, and we'll be again doing things in small groups. And we're going to make sure that all the slides and the resources will be distributed in terms of what you need to know and other opportunities as we move forward. So I think that's it around kind of our day and how we're zooming in and out. What I would like to do now at this point is I would like to introduce to you Yukio, who is our parent advisor chair for the council. I'd like to She's a parent from West Hartford, has been very actively involved in a lot of the planning meetings that we've done. And so I'd like to hand it over to Yukio at this point.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here on this afternoon. It's so nice out right now that I'm sure you guys would rather be outside enjoying the sun before we go into total darkness for the New England weather. So I really appreciate you taking the time today. So at our last advisory council meeting, Leona and members of CPAC did a wonderful job sharing about what this advisory council is and the structure. But just a quick reminder about who we are and what we do and what we hope to be doing moving forward in our very unusual and very virtual space. And this is all about relationships. So I think we have to work doubly hard this year in doing this work. You know, we are an advisory council, and we hope to establish a stable but also dynamic forum for families and stakeholders to communicate ideas, share experience, and link programming and resources to elevate family engagement practice with a focus on this great Connecticut state definition of full, equal, and equitable partnerships among families, educators, and community to promote children's learning. So what this basically just means that we really need to be, you know, out in our communities, checking in, what's happening, where are the needs, what can we do, bringing it back to this great group of thought partners and really acting on what we are hearing from our community, and hope that we can bring back useful information into our communities again, and to help all our kids thrive. I know we're still trying to just survive, it feels like, but ultimately thrive in this environment. And, you know, again, our responsibility as members of the advisory council, we need to advise the CFSP of the challenges that families face and ensure that parent voice is being heard and being included in the places that we are making decisions. Support open discussion and partnership opportunities. And again, because the state definition is about full, equal, and equitable partnership, we can't just listen to parents and we can't just listen to the stakeholders. We actually need to bring them to the table and create opportunities for that decision making or feedback. And there are many of us from across the state, so you know, we have to actively act as ambassadors for family engagement and practice and policy. There are many places that family engagement decisions are being made in your local buildings, in the district, at the state level. So we always have to be on point and make sure that we are advocating and getting the word out there about what family engagement truly means. Ooh, sorry, my mouse is so sensitive. Uh-oh. All right, back to the slide. So foster the conditions to collaborate, link, and share resources. Again, parents in our community are so important and they have such expertise. So we have to ensure that there are conditions on the ground that welcome them into the fold to be able to collaborate, make sure that they have information that they need to be able to thrive with their kids in this environment. And just some practical stuff, like as advisory council members, we have 4 meetings per year and we have to show up. And it's nice to see everyone because right now, again, where are we meeting our people that we like and want to spend time with? So we need to come together 4 times a year, and you can meet more with your innovative working groups. But at least for the advisory council, we have 4 meetings per year for you to attend. And the next part is the participate in subcommittee work. I know that over the summer, there was a group of us that met weekly to try to plan our first meeting. And that was such a great way to feel connected with other people and other members of, you know, this group that are doing very similar things and passionate about similar work. So, you know, get some work done in your subcommittee work, but I think it's a great opportunity to just keep connected, and have some social time too. And contribute to the mission of the council through evaluation and feedback. Again, you know, we as a council want to model and ensure that there is that feedback loop. You know, our council members bring information and feedback. We want to make sure that we marinate that information and act on it in the way that helps you again. So please fill out the evaluations at the end, or any emails that we send out about, hey, what do you think about this? Give us some feedback, and we really want to work on it together. So those are just a, you know, again, a run through of what this advisory council is about. But, you know, day in and day out, I know you do this with families, with educators, with students, and really appreciate that you are here again to bring back information to your communities, and look forward to our continued working relationships. So thank you. Back to you, Betsy.
What I wanted to talk a little bit about here is our partners and the work that we do for the Connecticut Family School Partnership. And we have 4 different partners. Our Connecticut State Department of Education, of course, is the umbrella for the work that we do. And SDE did have to sign off in terms of the application and our commitment to the U.S. Department of Education. African Caribbean American Parents of Children with Disabilities, AFCAMP, which is an agency here in Hartford, is a partner. The Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center, which a lot of people know as CPAC, is our partner. And then finally, the Connecticut State Education Resource Center is a partner in the work that they do. What that means is that each of our partners is doing direct work with school systems and also direct work with parents in our state. And so today what I'd like to do is I would like to introduce at each meeting what the recommendation was, is that our council members get to know a little bit more about what each of our partners can offer in terms of service and professional development to school systems and parents in our state. So I'd like to highlight today the Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center, and Jane Hampton, who is the director of the center, is here today to talk a little bit about what she is offering, and also to present the parent story in terms of the work that she's doing. So Jane, I would love for you to kind of take it over at this point.
Okay, thanks. So as Betsy said, I'm from the Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center. I am the co-executive director, and although I've been at the agency for a long time, I'm a new director. So everything is changing for us. But I'm going to go over just a quick snapshot of who we are. And I want you to really understand who we are more so than what we do, because who we are is really important as a foundation. We are Connecticut's federally funded parent training and information center. I start with that because we have advocacy in our title, and people often come to us looking for advocates, but that's not actually what we do. We are a parent training and information center. Our job is to teach parents how to advocate rather than to do it for them, much like the metaphor of teaching parents to, or teaching people to fish rather than fishing for them. We are providing high quality, meaningful information to families and professionals. We also serve the entire state. Betsy mentioned AFCAMP, who is one of our partners, and AFCAMP does very similar to work, but they are focused on the greater Hartford area, and we do the entire state. Some of our funding comes from U.S. Department of Ed, Connecticut Department of Ed, Birth to 3, this project here, and we also have a project with the Down Syndrome Association of Connecticut supporting their families. I wanted to share our vision, because I think it's really important to know who we are and how we do work in the world. We believe that all families will have the confidence, knowledge, and understanding they need to effectively advocate for their children and to partner with professionals to ensure that children and youth grow and learn to their full potential. So we're really about that partnership. Our mission and how we do our work is to educate, support, and empower Connecticut's diverse families of children and youth with disabilities or chronic conditions from ages birth to 26 and the professionals who serve them. We really take to heart the research that says when families and schools work together, students have improved outcomes. That is why we're a partner in this project. Some of the ways we find to serve families is, the first thing is all of our parent consultants are parents of children with disabilities themselves, myself included. We come from a place of understanding the stress and grief and pain, as well as the joys that go with raising a child with special needs. When a family calls us, I think that's very apparent in the first minute they connect with a parent consultant, is we know what they're going through. We also have bilingual staff who speak Spanish, Portuguese, Creole, and French. So we try to, have families contact them and talk to them directly in their native language. But we also can access the language line for other languages as needed by families. The bottom line for us is that when the parent calls us, wherever they are in their journey is where we try to meet them. Everybody comes to us from different places. Some are just gathering information. Some have been doing it for a long time and are in a pickle. And everybody comes from a different place. Our job is to really start by listening and finding out where that place is for them. And then we try to help them make connections. We really share the value of positive relationships. And the majority of families that call us want that too. We share lots of resources to help families in any area of need related to raising a child with a disability or raising a child in today's environment. And I repeated that we listen some more because that's really, active listening is probably our #1 strategy that we use all the time. And I think that's something that's really critical in family engagement, is to really listen to families. And I think Yukio said something to this effect, and being responsive to what you hear. It's not just a matter of listening, but making meaning and helping with what they're looking for. I don't want to go over, we have a lot of programs and services, and I have our contact slide at the end with our website, which will go more deeply into every program we have, but we view our services in 3 tiers. Tier 1 is accessible to people at any time. Our website and our social media is full of valuable information. And our expectation from the federal government is that everything is high quality, relevant, and meaningful to families. We don't put out 20-page white papers and expect parents to read them. We try to do short videos. We try to do 1-page pieces of information. And for many parents, calling and talking to our staff is really the best way for them to get information. So that's our tier 2. There is some kind of interactive communication. It's not one-sided. They might call our center, email our center. We also have in-person, we have an office in Niantic, Fairhaven Healthcare in Fairhaven section of New Haven, and St. Joseph's Parenting Center in Stamford. However, in the COVID time, none of our offices are open for in-person, but generally that is something that we have available. Same thing with training opportunities in the community. Those are all virtual right now and will be remaining that way for the time being, but it is something we offer. And again, it offers 2-way communication. Our Birth to 3 program has a program is called Family Connections, and it's a mentor program for families in birth to 3. And we do weekly live Spanish support calls on Zoom. So Spanish families can contact our Spanish staff every week. They can contact them through the call center as well. And tier 3 is our more intensive support. These are programs that are much more limited in scope as far as the numbers of people we serve. But when we determine as a staff that a family has a higher level of need, for whatever reason, you could be in birth to 3 with twins who are aging out, and that's just more complicated than somebody who has 1 child. Or you could have a disability yourself as a parent or not speak English. These are times when people might need more intensive support. And our Down syndrome program is designed as a more intensive support. We also serve youth with disabilities, and we have a youth intern on staff who makes blog posts. We have a youth advisory board called the Connecticut Secondary Transition Youth Advisory Board. We are really building more and more for youth as time goes by. The federal government in our new contract has a lot of room for youth activities, which is awesome. We provide training just for students, and we are building a website section and social media all the time to include our youth and meet them where they are at. We also do district level partnerships, and we support districts in a lot of different ways that they're looking for. If they want to work with families, we are happy to partner with them. And then this last slide before our contact, this is just an example of some of the CFSP work on our work plan. We do direct service to families. We're helping to develop family leaders, and our job is to capacity build professionals. I just had a meeting yesterday about the first bullet says, provide the parent perspective to participants in the state's Planning and Placement Team Leadership Institute. It's a PPT Leadership Institute for administrators and people who run PPT meetings. And we are going to be part of helping those participants understand the parent perspective, what it feels like to be us in the room, because it's sometimes a missed perspective. And this is my last slide, which is just our contact information. We encourage people with questions to call us, email us, use our website, reach out to us with whatever we can help you with. I had a conversation with many parents about trying to get a parent story for this meeting today. And I was asking people for stories of when schools reached out to you and did something that made a difference for your child. And to be honest with you, I spoke to many, many parents who couldn't think right now of a time that happened for them. And I think that was probably more about it being COVID time right now, and people aren't necessarily able to remember the happy things. So Lisa, that's about to talk to you, I had this conversation with Lisa, and Lisa said, well, I can come up with a story. I have a happy story that sometime the school did something that made a difference in my life. And she was kind of sad to hear that people were struggling with finding these stories right now. But what Lisa was really responding to in this story is I shared with her some information Judy Carson had shared with us last week at Leadership, which was about the fact that parents reply in their surveys that what they really want is personalized learning about their child. They want personalized information, not necessarily what everyone is learning, but what their child is learning and how their child is doing. So Lisa was responding to that particular story.
Hi. My name's Lisa Swain, and I'm a teacher and a parent, and I wanted to share a story with you today. So my 3 sons are now all in their 20s, but when they were little, I was the STEM lady. So I was actually called Mrs. Science, and I was supposed to know the most about teaching young children science and math and engineering and technology. And I thought I knew my children really well. And my oldest son was very hardworking and would always get the right answer on his math assignments. My middle son was a real goofball. He just was all over the place, and he wouldn't always get perfect homework or perfect test scores. And so I just assumed my oldest one was really the math kid, and my little one wasn't even in school yet. So when my middle son was in first grade, I went for a parent-teacher conference, and the teacher sat me down and she said, well, I have to tell you, I've never seen a child have this kind of math ability. And I was taken aback, and I said, are we talking about the same child? And she said, let me show you this assignment I gave them. They had a problem and they had to come up with different strategies to solve the problem. And she said, I can tell you that we have 23 children in the class, and most children came up with 1 or 2 strategies. There was one child who came up with 3 strategies, and your son came up with 19. And she showed me all these little scribbly drawings that my son had come up with. And this teacher said, I don't even understand the way he came about these solutions, but he did. And they all ended up being ways of looking at the problem and coming up with a solution. She said, I'm pretty sure he's going to end up being an engineer. And I left the conference just thinking, no, I can't, not my son. Anyway, over the years, that son did really have an interest in math and science. He ended up being a chemical engineer. So I actually let that teacher know how amazing it was that she took the time to get to know my son and to see something in him that I had totally missed. And it really changed the way that I looked at that son after that too. So that, I realized all of a sudden, oh my gosh, he does think differently. He really does think outside of the box. That doesn't mean that he's not doing it the right way. He's just doing it his own way. I just wanted to share that. I hope everyone else gets the experience of having a teacher that recognizes that your child has a special gift, because they all have special gifts.
That was Lisa. So I hope that the story resonates with people. That was personalized information that the teacher took the time to share with this parent and really made a huge difference in this family's life, and how mom, who is already tuned into kids and learning, didn't have that information for herself. Thank you.
I love this story. I absolutely love this story. Can we go back to Yukio? Can you help me with my sharing my PowerPoint?
Sure.
Okay, great. I appreciate the help. So I just want to talk a little bit about, I think that we talked a little bit before, but I want to talk a little bit about, what the grant and what we are charged with doing. And I think people know a lot about this, but this is just part of the work. The additional work that we do through the council is to make some of these bullets come alive and make them real and make them those opportunities for us to connect in positive ways with schools and develop partnership. So through our grant, really the 4 different buckets of work that I would say are the first, of course, the definition for family engagement in our state. We build on that definition of full, equal, and equitable. And really focusing on that equitable piece has been the work that we really have looked at this past year and will continue to look at in the future. And what that means for families, what that means for our school systems. How can our communities help us? So what the buckets of work are really to expand on, to build the capacity of schools and community agencies through professional development. Jane talked a little bit about some of the things that she has done as far as building parent leadership kinds of trainings and different pieces. But we have done some other work in terms of welcoming schools, and we're National Network of Partnership Schools, working with 5 districts, but also offering training to school systems throughout the state. The second bullet that is really important is building the capacity of families, and that's again through direct training and also through one-on-one communication with families. Since COVID, I'm sure you're very much aware, our work with families has just been exploding in terms of the needs and how we're responding to families. And that's part of the work that I think that our council, and as we begin to look at what are the opportunities, what are the windows of opportunities right now that we can expand in terms of reaching out to families, providing more opportunities to families, as well as working with teachers and school districts to begin to make us very, very positive partnerships with families. Build the capacity to promote shared learning with schools and families and community. And that's really our advisory council. So that's building the leadership, and also it's kind of building the support, so the community organizational aspect, as well as the aspect of looking at what are the policies and practices. And that's where I see our advisory council being integral in terms of the work that we are working on. The next one is really, developing a hub, a place that we can house some of the work that we've been doing, our stories that we have, the resources, the other opportunities for not only families but schools to be able to use as they move forward with family development. So that the next one, please. So that is really that's the buckets of our work. What we continue to do is, and I've just put this together because this is in the past year of just some of the stuff that we've done. We've provided parent-teacher home visitation training, which is and we're doing that as we speak. We just had one. We'll do another one next month. That is a best practice that's been identified through our organizations. Our U.S. Department of Education, Connecticut has defined that, and something that we are moving forward and providing to all Alliance school districts in our state. Welcoming schools training. You'll see a lot that's in here. Our Friday cafes that have been incredibly important, particularly during the COVID kind of crisis. Allowing people who work at the intersection of family engagement to get together, to talk, to get the support that they need has been incredibly important. We're actually conducting something this evening that is Friday Cafe After Hours, and that's really looking at communication and what communication, when good communication happens, what do? How do we listen? How do we listen for each other? Equity training, adult education. So these are the things that we've done in the past year. But one of the things that I think is most impressive is our CFSP council and the way that it was constructed, and also the support that we have here. We can go to the next one. I want to keep on pointing here. Thank you. So one of the things that we developed, and Dave Bechtel is in the audience someplace, but one of the things in the spring, with one of the 5 targeted districts that we were working with, and that is Stanford, came to leadership and said, you know what, we're really looking for a survey right now that would take a look during the pandemic about what teachers and also what families need. And so we brought people together, some family engagement directors from different districts, Dave Bechtel from Cross Sector, our evaluator, and Dr. Sheldon from the National Network of Partnership Schools came together, and we developed a survey that was distributed right before the end of school to school districts in our state, and it was designed for families and also for teachers. And I just wanted to highlight some of the things that we think, the themes that were coming back. Dave did a fabulous job on doing this. I think this is important information, and it's important information because it really does speak to, again, opportunities that we really need to think about as we move forward in this work. So the first one is that most parents are working and helping their children with schoolwork, but teachers may not see the ways that parents are supporting their children at home. The teachers have increased their family engagement, strengthened relationships with families, and guess what? Want additional resources for family engagement. That's where we come in. Families appreciate their teachers' support and want more communication and support for home learning, an opportunity for teacher-parent communication. And what we know is that, of course, that family engagement is at the heart of learning, and districts can build on strengths and partnerships with many of Connecticut's resources. Next, please. The survey, if we could go to the next one, that would be great. Parents, the work that we actually, I think we have to go back just a little bit. I can't say the whole thing, Yukio, but I think that what we need to do is go back. There we are. This is what's important about the survey that we did in Connecticut that represents our kind of, our perspective, is that national surveys also support and validate the work that we're doing here in Connecticut and the work that we're finding. So for example, what parents wanted in national surveys was specific guidance and support from schools. Again, that connectedness, what we talked about. Access to computers, internet, and technical assistance. I think that's something certainly that we've seen, particularly in the beginning of COVID, but I think we're continuing to see some of those cracks in what people have and what people need. Guidance, right? Guidance for providing at-home academic support. So families are asking for more and more. They're really getting a peek into what teachers have to do, and they're now saying, you know, I can help. I can reinforce what you're doing, but you've got to give me some tools. You've got to give me some help in order to do that. And assistance and tips for managing online activities. So those are the big things nationally that actually support the survey work that we've done in Connecticut. We can do the next one. This is a survey from Danbury. And oh no, this is Stanford. I'm sorry, it was Stanford. So using the data, so Connecticut is really data driven, right? We want data in order to make good informed decisions, or the best decisions that we can at the time. So you can see that after Danbury found the results, and again, Danbury was one of the urban communities that was involved in developing the survey and actually distributing the survey. You can see a lot of the things that they did as a result of the data. But what I wanted to kind of highlight too was the bilingual technology. Paraeducator was assigned to support families with questions about technology. So again, what Stanford saw and what they needed was a action, a strategy that they took right away. That they collaborated with community organizations and parents to produce an instructional guide, pop-up webinars, and website improvements for their families in both English and Spanish. That whole communication piece in terms of what they did. We can do the next one too, please. The other community was Danbury. So Danbury highlighted resources that families can use on their website by really looking at it and seeing if it was appropriate and if it had represent plain language with parents, but also how accessible and easy to use it was. So that was another kind of key finding that they absolutely responded to. Danbury also provided resources for teachers. They created an online shared folder of family engagement resources for staff and administrators. So something that was accessible, something that teachers could use, teachers who were interested, again, in this whole idea, give me more about family engagement, really helped me to use this information in a better way. So these are just some of the findings that I think that we're beginning to look at. And of course, we talked over and over again about this whole idea of relationships, right? You'll see in Danbury's that they just spent the first 3 weeks of school with a focus on connecting to families. If we reach out, if we have that connection, what does that mean later on? And how can we maintain those partnerships as we move forward into the coming school year? Important information. Next, please. So right now, I'm going to hand it over to our partner and our mentor and the friend of Connecticut, Ann Henderson. Ann, of course, has pretty impressive credentials. She's on the board of the National Association of Family School Community Partnerships in Washington, D.C. Ann's a consultant nationally. But most importantly, Ann is a friend to Connecticut. So I'm just going to hand it over to you, Ann. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. I hope everybody can hear me. And Yukio, you're doing the slides, right? Let's have the next slide. Innovation working groups. So those of you who were at the last meeting know we divided up into 3 working groups that are going to be talking about what innovations are needed in each of those areas. Not all of you on this meeting have been perhaps in one of these working groups, so we're going to catch you up with what they have been doing. And after we get their reports and take any questions you have, then we're going to break into 3 totally randomly assigned small groups, one for communication, one for links to learning, and one for dual capacity and parent leadership, to give them your thoughts and ideas and reactions to their reports. One thing I want to say before we invite the reporters from each group to give their short reports is that we tried to really align these working groups with the guiding principles to Connecticut's definition. And those guiding principles, of course, first are all about building trust, which is a foundational principle that would cut across all of these areas. But then it's communication. And of course, it's the kind of communication that advances and amplifies parent voice so that it is two-way and parents have ample opportunities to use their expertise and be heard. And then the links to learning, and that is making sure that family engagement strategies and practices are linked back to improving children's learning and development. And third, the dual capacity and parent leadership have to do with building staff capacity to work with families, but also parent leadership to be able to be those full, equal, and equitable partners that the definition talks about. So Octavia, would you give us a short report on the communication working group?
Yes. Hi, I'm Octavia Moore, parent leader from East Hartford, Connecticut. And in our communications innovation working group, we have Regan Allen, Yukio leader, me, Octavia Moore, and Mary Malloy. So the purpose of the communications working group is to advance equity and amplify parents' voices. We would like to be an advocate for parents to gain resources they may need when it comes to their child's education. We, as the CFSP advisory team, can offer best practices for parents on how to approach or initiate communication between teachers and administrators. Also, providing a list of tools, apps, or various models of communication for our parents to help them better serve their children within the education system. So for us in the communications working group, we want to be an avenue for parents to come and let us know what their needs are and help them. Like we had CPAC come on and give us some information about that. So even working with CPAC on strategies that will help the parents be an advocate and train them also, as CPAC said, being an advocate for themselves. So for us, we are here as an avenue, and if any parents would like to give us suggestions going forward on how we can help them within the field and to advocate for themselves and for their children, we are here for that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Octavia. And then when we go into our small meeting, you can give more ideas you have about what communications needs and pathways should look like. So let's go to the links to learning working group. Camille.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Camille Smith, and I'm part of the Links to Learning Innovation Work Group. And at our meeting, we had myself, Judy Carson, and Anderson, Leslie Escoboles, sorry if I messed your name up, and Betsy Laboris. So the overview of our group discussion was, we talked about what drew the parents to the group innovation, links to learning. And the parents talked about, well, as a group, we talked about, one parent said the word link needs to be established between home and school. And parents talked about how that parents in general that couldn't speak English, how they struggle, they don't understand the technology. So not being able to speak English or not understanding the technology, when instructions come home for their student or their child, they're not able to understand, or it's hard to understand how to follow the instruction. Parents want more information on how to support learning at different developmental stages, because again, some parents also, they might not have the high school level, or they might not, their level of understanding wasn't what we're getting now. Like the math we got back then wasn't the same like what we're getting now. So, they need more support on how to understand that. They need support from middle to high school parents, and they want to help to build better relationship between families and school. We discussed what do we hope will happen as a result of being a part of this group. We want to have meaningful conversations directed to what children are learning and doing in class, ongoing and consistent feedback loops, help family understand new curriculum, and offer fun practices. We want to build meaningful relationships, or hope meaningful relationship will be established, and a new mindset, and share families, their hopes and their dreams, and teachers understand how important they are to family and ways on how to capitalize these. And some of the resources we talk about to help us do these things were Seesaw in Vernon Elementary School, Google Classroom. There's Manchester, they have an app where they do homework updates, learning, Hero survey, and the CFSP distance learning survey. So that is from our group, and we talked about like when is our next meeting. So again, if you have anything you would like to share or anything you didn't understand, we can talk about it later on during our discussion. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Camille. That was a terrific wrap up. I was in that meeting and you reminded me of things I'd already forgotten. And now we have the dual capacity and parent leadership group. And we have two parent advisors who are going to discuss that, Alicia and Maxine. So you're on.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Alicia Thompson. So in our innovation working group, yesterday, what we ended up doing was we watched a video on dual capacity. And then after we did that, we pretty much just came up with what the definition was for what we thought for dual capacity was. And what we came up with is that it's building both the confidence and connection in schools and families that will benefit both sides. So it will benefit both the educators and benefit both also parents. And we also felt that families and educators need to have the playing field just pretty much on an equal playing level. And we went in just a little bit further just to see, well, what are the needs and what are barriers and how can we address the barriers? And based on that, we got into a deeper discussion in terms of, it was more so of like with parents and also with educators. Sometimes it could be working in silos and we don't want that. So we pretty much want to know what the strengths are for what the families bring, and then also how they can meet each other halfway. We also had Jen share a CPAC dual capacity program with us. It was created by a special education advisory council. And that's where parents and faculty, they work together to address issues and concerns in the school district. And that helped to advance students' outcomes. Then further, there were three main things that we looked at as well, where it said, what is a current unmet need in the family-school partnership? And we just pretty much just dive into what some of those examples were. So one of them was school staff administration buying as a priority in the form of funds, as well as parents as partners and leaders. And then we also looked at what data and information do we need for planning to meet those unmet needs. And some things we came up with was, what do families think due capacity is? What do educators see that as? And then we paused for a bit and just said, well, it would be important in terms of what are some ideas would be to meet these needs. And we said we would need to have parents surveyed and also educators surveyed and have things like maybe a focus group so that we can get information from them firsthand. There was a lot more that was discussed, but I'm not going to take up too much time because I know we have a lot more to discuss and have breakout sessions. Thank you.
Oh, that was terrific, Alicia. Thank you. So across all three reports, I saw, of course, that communication is mentioned in all three areas because, of course, you can't do any of this without communicating. And also the idea of two-way communication with strong parent voice. And I also heard things about needing tools and more opportunities to connect in meaningful ways and to build a sense of priority for the importance of this on the part of school staff and administrators. Lots of themes for us to be thinking about as we break into small groups. Are there any, Octavia, are there any questions that have come up in the chat box that we should address before we break?
No, I don't have any questions.
Oh, it must be that we've just been crystal clear about everything, right?
Yes.
Then we will address these two questions, which is what we've heard today from CPAC, from the parent story, from Betsy's wrap up of what this Connecticut School Family Partnership Center is doing, all of its different activities, what we heard about the survey and where parents stand with and teachers about where things are right now with remote learning and all the coping we're doing with living in a pandemic environment. And then the reports that you just heard, a lot to digest. What should each of these groups be thinking about as they move forward? What, from your point of view, are the needs, the priorities, the interests? What do you think is important right now? And in all of your thinking, really focus on how is this going to advance equity? How is what the groups are doing going to move the needle on removing the tremendous gaps in resources and outcomes that our families are facing right now? So did somebody in communications was deputized to speak out and share a couple of ideas you discussed?
Yes,
Yes,
I'm Regan Allen. I was voluntold to report.
Great.
Group. So we talked about sort of the three main things that we're talking about are doing something with helping parents with communicating about technology. So we did say that that kind of overlapped with the links to learning, because we were talking about all these different apps and whatnot, but also making sure that the instruction to using the apps and platforms with technology is in different languages, so that there's some equity. So that was one thing. We also talked about, in general, most of the parents, like, you have the two-way communication with your child's teacher, but there's not too much two-way communication once you get above that level. So if you have an issue that's a school-wide issue or a district-wide issue, how can we tell parents how to handle that? Like, is there a roadmap? So we'd like to have some sort of roadmap of how parents can share their thoughts if it's something that they're concerned about that's not just affecting their child, but all children in a school or a district. And the last thing we talked about is that how can we help parents learn how to communicate the positive news about their schools? Because schools tend to be bashed in the media so much, and parents are not PR experts. So how can we help parents to sort of flip the narrative to share the positive things?
Oh boy, that's terrific. Those are really good ideas. Thank you so much, Reagan. Now, who's going to do link to learning report?
Sure, I am. I took notes, and other people can feel free to jump in. But in listening to other groups, we are also interconnected in how all these 3 work groups are going to work. In terms of linking to learning, we did talk about where are the students in all of this too, and that they need to be taken into consideration, and their voice and their needs, and how they need help from the adults in their life, whether it be the educator or the parents at home. And we also talked about how there is such a Zoom and even survey fatigue at this point that we want to be able to collect how are we doing about linking to learning, or what do you want to know more about in order to support your child at home, but that people might not respond because there's just way too many emails and surveys at this point. So we have to think about can we do more in-person focus groups with polls, using Zoom or other tools, to be able to get some of this information in a way that makes sense. And just one last thing about linking to learning was that when you get to the middle school and high school level, the communication between educators and parents about how parents or caregivers at home can support their kids kind of gets a little cut off, because they want to build some of those skills in the students to be self-advocates. But especially in this environment now where there's remote learning, there's hybrid learning, the parents and caregivers need to act as TAs and, the tech help and the person that oversees PE and art and all that stuff, that we, even at the middle school and high school level, would love to have some of that information to be able to support, the success of our kids at home. And one last thing is that we talked about how the linking to learning, might happen in some of these larger emails from school, but that it's nice to get good communication about all the positive things happening in school too, and not just that dreaded email from the superintendent about positive cases, or like that decision to shut down or switch gears in that way. And that we really are looking for some good news in the world too. So I think in the communications, Regan mentioned about getting positive news. And so it was good to hear that some districts are doing that on a building by building level.
Gee, that's terrific. Thank you, Yukio. Now, the group that I was in, parent leadership and capacity building, got put back into the main room before we deputized somebody. So I'm going to put one of you on the spot. Judy, would you sum up what we talked about?
Sure. I was trying to slink back in my chair, but darn it, you found me.
Better.
Okay. Talked about the building capacity in educators and parents, but also talked about the capacity that they already have. And we were thinking about the ways that there's times that families could actually be in the lead, and they could perhaps be the trainer or the co-trainer when educators are the learners. So we flipped the model a little bit, but we also talked about the importance of support and training for families as well as teachers when they're on committees, and there's different venues where they can use their voice, but unless they've been through some kind of training program And one of our members was a teacher as well. She said that she was on committees and at first felt like everybody knows more than I do. So while we have some great leadership programs in the state, some of them do take quite a bit of time and not everybody can do that. So Jane and CPAC were talking about some specific training, really just about how to be a member of some kind of decision-making group and learning to use your voice. So we talked about capacity and voice in a few different ways.
Yeah. It was great to have a teacher in the room, and she was so supportive. Jennifer Benevento was so supportive when you, Judy, raised the issue of perhaps parents could do some training of teachers, and of course we can go vice versa, but that's usually the way it is. And that just bringing people together to talk where they're all sort of prepared to do that really makes the communication, builds the trust and makes the communication much more effective. So I'm going to hand it now over to Betsy for our remaining couple of minutes left in our meeting to close us out today. Thank you everybody for participating, and I hope those of you who sat in those groups might consider joining and being part of the committee after that. So we'll be reaching out to you to see if you would like to do that. Your ideas were just terrific. We want to keep capturing them.
So I just want to thank everyone. And this is just one little thing that actually a quote from a parent in a symposium that both Judy and I participated. Actually, Judy put it together, right, in terms of partnerships and how important this whole idea of partnerships and actually the dance. And I guess that speaks to, it really does speak to that piece that we both have something really important to offer. And it's sitting down and figuring out what are those things that we can offer, again, that will bridge those gaps, because those are the things that we remember and we hang on to, and we will always go back to as far as I mean, we're both in it for young people. That's what we're here for. So I'm going to just do the last one, Yukio, because I just want to give people some information. And I'm seeing the great big screen, so I'm going to kind of go to my stuff that I have in front of me. And one thing that I definitely we're going to just make sure, please complete the evaluation. It will make Dave Bechtel and Francisco Vides incredibly happy, and we like to see them smile, because that evaluation, of course, will be used for us as we begin to kind of think about, is this the right format? Do the meetings need to change? However, the next meeting of the formal large council is January 21st, and I have the other dates of April 8th and also June 17th. So one thing I'd like to say, this is important too, we have created the opportunity, we talked to NASCE, the National Association for Family School Community Engagement, and we will create memberships for all people who are interested in being a member of NAFSCE. I would like to send emails to NAFSCE so that they will get to you. Now, what I need you to do is, I'm going to send something out afterwards. If you do not want me to send an email to NAFSCE, please notify me. Please notify me. I do not want to take that, I don't want to take that step without having people agree to that. But we have membership capacity for NAFSCE. And then, of course, the last one is our website. Please visit our website, ConnecticutFSP.org, with information. So this is the NAFSCE website, but our own council, our Connecticut Family School Partnership, also has a website, right? And it has some wonderful materials. So lastly, all parents who are here, as we committed, will be compensated. So I believe in the chat, which I can't see right now, but in the chat there is a W-9. If you need a W-9, then please let us know. But that information should be emailed to Guatemala Claudia, and I believe her information should be on here. Again, my information is on here if you need more. Here we are. Here's Guatemala. So please complete the W-9. And finally, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone. Jane, thank you. Please thank the parent who just told the most compelling story about just kind of really tapping into a young person's hopes and dreams and making that real for that parent, and really what the long-term implications are. So again, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. And we'll see you in January, if not before, on the innovative working groups. Thank you again.